So today Tracy is going to talk about data literacy and doing a virtual workshop, professional learning about that topic, which also leads me to remind everybody that I hope that you have registered for the NARM meeting. And our whole theme is data literacy. So we have a number of presenters and it is going to be a great virtual conference. Just to reassure people, in case you haven't looked at the agenda, it is not Zoom constantly for X number of days. The sessions are short, there are breaks, there's networking. So I hope you do join us for that event. It'll be the first of its, oh, there's the other California person joining us. So it's going to be a great virtual conference. So I do hope you can join us. And for $21, it is a bargain. And you'll get to see all the GLOBE partners that have signed up so far. And I don't know, Tracy, hopefully you can kind of end your session today with any other details that you want to share about that. All right, so with that, I'm going to turn it over to you, and I hope I can stay on the line. I am going to shut down my camera just in case I continue to have Wi-Fi problems.
Sure. Can you stop sharing? Awesome. Yay. So let's do the obligatory share screen. And so I'm going to start out with a little bit of a confession today. And that is to tell you that I was not nervous at all, because I feel like you guys are friends and colleagues until Kristen Hunter-Thompson showed up on the participant list. So now I'm sweating bullets. And I'll tell you guys who she is and why I'm sweating here in just a second. But Kristen, thanks for coming in today, just to do a shout out to you. So great. Thanks for being here, everyone. Another awesome water cooler for all of us to take part in today. As Jen said, we're going to focus on data literacy training in a virtual setting. So hopefully what I can do is give you guys some tips and ideas based on my experiences of doing data literacy training with our teachers out here in California and New Mexico. And I am with UC Berkeley Department of Chemistry. I am also with the WestEd UC Berkeley GLOBE Partnership. And last but not least, I am with GLOBE Mission Earth. And if you want to hear more or see more about GLOBE Mission Earth, we have a page on the GLOBE website. And we're also on Facebook, so you can get a lot of updates and information on our Facebook page as well. So let's go ahead and get started. So in this water cooler, I'm going to basically narrow it down to the what of data literacy training, the why, and the how. So those are the three big ideas of the water cooler today. And we're going to start with the what of data literacy. And if I were to do a poll with all of you, I might ask you what you think data literacy entails. And all of you are probably in your mind right now kind of thinking about, oh, I would call it this, or I would call it that, or I would include this or that. And you probably all would be spot on. But whenever we do a training, we really want to make sure that we communicate to our participants what our perspective of data literacy is. And so I'm going to borrow my first borrowing from Kristen Hunter-Thompson. I'm going to borrow her definition of data literacy. And it's the ability to collect, organize, visualize, analyze, interpret, and share not just your data for yourself, but also for others and for their use and understanding as well. And if you notice, there are some action words here: collect, organize, visualize, analyze, interpret, and share. And those are words we're going to see later on in the presentation, but those are really, think right now, those core ideas. And I'll tell you right now, it's really hard to do a training and touch all of those ideas in one training. And so I want you to consider what is the most important ideas to your audience that you're training, and then focus on those ideas within the training. But keep in mind that all of these components of data literacy are equally important. So now that we've defined what the what is of data literacy, let's talk about the why. So this to me is the most fun part of getting my participants or my teachers who I work with to be interested and excited about data literacy, because this is that hook part, right? This is the part where we can really explain how data literacy is in everyday society, in our lives, in our programs, and it's connected to our culture, our community. It's connected to what we do, our questioning, our decision making. We all know politics and policies and practices have been changed in terms of how we social distance and wearing masks and restrictions in various different ways in our communities. So this is really a big hook for our learners, our students, and it's a really important piece for our participants of our training. And we always want to talk about data literacy in terms of driving our next steps, really, of learning more. What are we going to do with the data, and why do we care, right? So that's the why of data literacy that I think is important to communicate during a training. And I'll show you a couple slides that I use that help with that hook feature of the why. Okay, so the other thing I wanted to communicate with you is when we talk about data literacy, I really like to focus on the thinking part of data literacy, the data thinking in our culture and careers. And this is something that I feel is equally important to our educators that are out there, because even though science is really the field that we're in, and we talk to mainly science teachers, it's important for them to make the connections to the other content areas that those students are engaged with, whether it's a social science teacher or art or whatever it is. Because data thinking is embedded in so many different careers and so many different ideas. And I always like to try to do a career piece or a culture piece when I talk to teachers, and let them know that this is bigger than just biology class or a chemistry class. Okay. So Kristen, you just heard your voice there. Let me do a little intro to this. So the other piece that's important to remember when we're presenting or we're training our educators on data literacy is the connection to NGSS and science and engineering practices. And so I'm gonna let Kristen talk a little bit about her connection to science and engineering. And I wanted to let you also know that Kristen does a series of data literacy webinars that you can be a part of, and you can find out more about those workshops or webinars by going to her website, dataspire.org.
Thanks, Tracy. So I think the question was, what's my connection to science? Is that what you just asked me to do?
Practices in the next generation science standards that we've incorporated that we've adopted to be our science standards in New Jersey, as well as many other states across the country. And so while sometimes we think about data as just analyzing and interpreting data, data in fact plays a huge role in everything that we do when we're doing science. And we can see that in lesson plans, where there's more and more lesson plans are on the market that incorporate real world data or have students collect their own data, just like you all are doing with the information that you're collecting about the cloud cover and the temperatures and things like that.
Right. So basically the summary of the connection to science and engineering is that those practices is that really we see data sprinkled amongst all of those science and engineering practices, and making that connection to NGSS might be the spark that engages your educators in doing more deliberate data literacy instruction with their students. So we made connection to NGSS, we made connections to careers and cultures. And I think it's equally important to, since we are in the platform of GLOBE, to make a connection to the GLOBE program. So back on the left here, you see a column of those 6 components that were in Kristen's definition of data literacy: collect, organize, visualize, analyze, interpret, and share. And just to make some deliberate connections here, collecting of data, obviously GLOBE protocols and GLOBE Observer apps do a great job at data collection. They also do a great job at organizing that data. We have data sheets through the GLOBE program. Teachers often revise data sheets and make them their own. So this is a great way to organize that data, and they can enter that data into the GLOBE database. Visualizations is where I think students starts to struggle a little bit. And so really creating a training that focuses on the next 3, visualize, analyze, interpret, I think is super important. Many of our educators really don't know how to create visuals, and they don't understand that visuals are based on not necessarily the numbers of the data, but the question we're trying to answer. Obviously, through the GLOBE program, we have the Viz tool, which is very helpful in visualizing the numbers or the data within the GLOBE program. I like to just give educators another bit of a hook as far as analysis is concerned, in that telling a story. And kids get this. Kids get analyzing data in terms of telling a story, and even of identifying characters, or what we would call variables within that data. The interpretation of data is not just drawing conclusions, but also it's relating what that information, what that data visual is, back to the question. So again, doing a training that focuses on those 3, visualizing, analyze, and interpreting, can be an entire effort within one training. And I don't recommend it, but you know, I understand teachers' times, but it's also, those are 3 really big pieces of data literacy. And last but not least, you know, the GLOBE program has opportunities for students to share their research, and that's through the Student Research Symposium and the International Virtual Science Symposium. So all of these components of data literacy are tied into student research and tied into the GLOBE program, and I think there's a really nice fit there. So a little bit about virtual training in terms of data literacy. I just have a few other tips or ideas on this. Obviously, for data acquisition, the collection or organization of data is really apparent through the GLOBE program. And I also want to put in a strong you know, recommendation for using the GLOBE Observer app. This is something that we're really focusing for our teachers to use that Observer app in the time of distance learning. And the other tool I want to mention, if you don't know anything about GLOBE Teams, they're a great opportunity to collect data in terms of a group of students so that they can use that data for personal research or for data literacy purposes. A couple other ideas about data literacy and training. Give your audience an opportunity to explore data portals. There's quite a few of them out there. And sometimes that's the only data that they'll be able to use and find, because they don't have that ability to collect data. Again, I'll plug in the GLOBE Viz tool and the ADAT system for acquisition of data. And I don't want to shortchange our friends at NASA with the My NASA Data website, and specifically the Earth System Data Explorer. There are tutorials there if you don't know how to do it. But certainly the NASA Langley folks are really excited and really focused on providing data resources during this time of COVID. So I highly recommend you check out that website if you don't know much about it yet. All right, so data visualization. This is something that you'll want to really connect with online resources with visualization. And graph choice charts are a great way to get started. These are from the Data Literacy Project. And again, I'll mention the dataspire.org website has actual graph type matrix activities for you to be for you to engage your audience in. And I'm going to jump to them right now. This is something that is, again, on the DataSpire website. And I'm just, instead of going into breakout rooms, because we're at 1:30 right now, I just wanted to give you an idea of what an activity like this might look like. If you're doing a virtual training, I recommend that you break your audience out into different breakout rooms. And after you provide some context of what graph choice is and why that's important, and a part of that is explaining what a comparison graph is, or a distribution or a composition graph is, or visual, I should say. You can give them that opportunity through something like this. And this is something that was done with me when I was in one of Kristen's workshops, is you actually have the opportunity of pulling these graphs down to the areas based on the description here of what your team thinks is most appropriate in that particular row. So there's a comparison, a distribution, and a composition row. And composition, by the way, is this, what a part of a whole kind of thing. Distribution is looking at what the variation of data is. So you might have a lot, quantitative data might be involved, qualitative data might be involved with that too. So there's different graphs here. And so as a team, you would ask your teams to consult and decide how they want to show their understanding of graph choice. And then at the end, and by the way, these graph type matrix that are on the DataSpire website have an elementary version, a middle school version, a high school version, and undergraduate version. So this might be the result of what an undergraduate version, as an example, might look like in terms of graph choice or graph type matrix. And so, this is just an activity, and building activities like this into your training are super important, and they reinforce how challenging it actually can be to decide how to, make graphs, or how to choose what kind of graph to make based on the data and the question you're actually trying to answer. So I'm going to move to analysis a little bit. And we said earlier that analysis from a perspective of an educator, and certainly the perspective of a student, is telling a story. It's inspecting the data. And I put in italics there, the cleansing of data, because we have to be a little careful with that. We don't want to throw data out that is good data but looks weird kind of thing. So this is something that you would have to explain during your training. And basically what we're trying to do with analysis is figure out, how is the data useful to me? How is this going to inform my conclusions? And how do we find meaning in that data? So that's a part of the analysis training you want to make sure. And you can do breakout rooms. One thing I did with the teachers that I did this with is that I gave them a graph. This is a COVID, confirmed COVID cases by region visual. And so I just asked them, what's the story that this particular graph is telling? And I had a lot of different responses to that. So maybe what we can do now is you guys can kind of play along here a little bit, and in the chat, take a look at this graph here and just tell me what you think the story in these data. What are these data telling us? So why don't you just take about a minute or two and go into the chat, and let's see what folks are saying. Okay, we have a lot of increasing COVID cases across the world. We have some folks relating COVID cases to a timeline. Some folks might make a connection of COVID cases by region specifically. So those are all pretty cool ideas. of what kind of story this is telling. So this is a great way. And I would just definitely use a graph that you think is of interest to your participants. Okay. This is another example of something that I showed my teachers during my program, and they, latched onto this one right away. One of my chemistry teachers specifically. This shows air quality, specifically NO2, within a year's time frame, 2019 and 2020. These are not the best graphs. This is February, March range. And so one question you might ask your audience is not just what's the story in the map, but what story is it not telling us? Where's the information that's missing from the story? So this is another way just to look at data and maps and graphs. And like I'm going to say again, the My NASA Data website has awesome satellite visuals that can be used with your training programs. So last but not least, I'm going to connect analysis to the student research poster. And I think always looking at the products is important when we're doing virtual training. These are actually sentence starters in the Student Research Symposium that we provide students to help them understand what data analysis is all about. So this is embedded within the research poster. So it is really a great way for students to start their analysis section in that poster. I want to talk a little bit about data interpretation, because often for both our participants and our learners is that sometimes analysis and interpretation overlap or get confused or may not be clear to them. So you always want to provide some sort of definition or information on interpretation in your training. I just picked one here. That's one of the purposes of data interpretation, is to inform us on our conclusion. It helps drive our conclusion. And interpretation is always kind of going back to that research question. What are we trying to find? What's the meaning of that information in terms of our research question? And so we could use the exact same graphs in our training and instead ask our audience to state what they think these data can answer. What's the question these data would be able to answer for us? So let's just do a quick chat again. I'm going to go ahead and take a look at the chat and say, if you were to, ask a question of these data, what kind of question do you think this particular graph might be answering? So think about it in terms of what you see. So what are what regional trends are there in confirmed COVID cases? What's the distribution of COVID cases over these regions? Might be another question that this particular visual can help us answer. Okay, great. And then again, we could do the same thing with our other visual that we provided. Again, using the same visuals is very helpful. It's very familiar. If you can keep using the same visuals and just look at them differently. All right, and then last, I wanted to put another plug in for interpretation in terms of the student research projects and the poster itself. If you look in the poster panel on interpretation or interpreting data, we give also some supporting sentence starters there for our students to use. So real quickly, the 1, 2, 3 steps of data literacy virtual training. Remember a few things. Data literacy and therefore the training of data literacy is a process. It's not a one-stop shop. Oh, you had an hour of data literacy training, you're good to go, kind of stuff. It's a continual process, and we're continually learning. And as I said earlier, data literacy comes in many components, many parts to a whole, and making those connections is super important in in a training program. And then consider some aspects of data literacy outside of our science world, either as hooks or connections to other content areas. Obviously, this is a census year, so talking about the census in terms of data literacy is also a great hook and a great opportunity to bring in cultural relevance into our training and with our educators. This is something I think it's always good to keep in mind, is focusing on what question we're trying to answer and not necessarily look at the numbers and decide on how we present those numbers. We always have to keep the question in mind as we move through this process of data literacy. And so that's an important piece of your training. I think when you do data literacy training, there's different kinds of data, whether it's processed data, data that's been collected. And again, just going back to that question, what kind of question is the data answering for us? Or what kind of question are we using to determine whether or not the data answered that question? So online data literacy portals, there's a bunch out there. And so providing portals, whether they're data portals or resources for data literacy, I highly recommend that you include that, whether it's through your own program that you're doing or other programs that you want to bring into your training. And I guess this is my last slide. If you aren't tired of hearing from me yet, I'm actually doing a workshop on data literacy this Saturday, October 10th, and it's 2 educators. And so it's a free workshop. If you're interested, you can sign up for the workshop, or if you have any additional questions, my email is there.